Hey everyone, my name is Connor Hubbard, and I'm going to be demonstrating how to build a Canvas app in Power Apps. Specifically, we're going to be making the game Flappy Bird. In this video, we're going to be going over some important fundamentals of Canvas apps that include properties of items, as well as properties within the app, some functions within Canvas apps, importing media into a Canvas app, global variables, where to assign global variables, addition and subtraction to global variables, creating buttons, text fields, timers, and more. It's okay if you don't know what any of those mean yet. I'll do my best throughout the video to explain them, but if my explanation isn't enough, I'm also going to be providing some links that Microsoft provides, and they'll explain these fundamental concepts as well. So I'm going to go ahead and play this app, and this is what our finished product is going to look like when we're done developing. Before we do get started, a little bit about me and my experience with the Power Platform. I have been working with the Power Platform and Power Platform tools for over 3 years now, and I work in IT consulting. I graduated from college in 2019. I don't have a degree in computer science or anything IT related, but I have been able to learn a lot about the Power Platform with on-the-job experience over 3 years and change, and I'll share some of that knowledge with you today. I will preface this with saying I'm not an expert in Canvas apps, and I'm definitely not the first person to make a video game in Power Apps. But I think my perspective of not having a formal education in computer science or anything IT related, other than Microsoft certifications, but no college education in computer science or IT. I think that perspective could encourage some people who also might not have gotten that formal education in computer science or anything software development related, and they want to work in that field and specifically the Power Platform. But that is enough about me. Let's get started. All right, so now's the fun part. We get to start building our Flappy Bird application in our Canvas app. We're looking at a blank Canvas app right now. First thing first, we're going to get our images in there. So a couple things we'll get off in there are the bird itself. The bird's actually a GIF, and then we're going to get our background, and then we're going to get our game over graphic in there as well. So I actually already imported those in there. We just got to create these images, but if you go and click image, you'll look at our data source here, and we've got 3 images in here. This is the bird GIF here. And you can see it's pretty cool, right? It's got the birds that flap, so that's awesome. And then we're going to go ahead and import our background. So we'll click another image in here. Let's add it in, and this will be our background. So we'll do this one. Yeah, it's called bird, but it's actually the background of it. So something important to know about Canvas apps, and they're layered, right? There are different screens that we're looking at. So this is our screen 1. We'll go ahead and rename this our play screen. We're only going to be using one screen this whole application, but it's a good idea to name everything. So we're going to go ahead and name our bird. We're just going to name him bird. Oops. We'll do capitalization. Here we go. And then we'll name our background, just our background's fine. All right. And something important to note is, we'll go ahead and back up here, that there's layers. So you'll see backgrounds at the top. So if we put background over the bird, it'll hide the bird. But if we want the bird to be in front and the background to be in the back, right? Because if you see the bird jumping, we want to see the bird and not this. So we'll go ahead and move the bird forward. So we can reorder here and bring it to the front. So now if we move the background, it's going to be under. We could have moved the bird forward, or we can move the background back. So either one works. But it's important to understand that there's layers within the Canvas app screen. All right, but I'll go ahead and expand this out to make it look proper. And this doesn't look perfect, and I'll just go ahead and just put some rectangles in here. Sometimes I like doing that, just to make sure that the background looks good. So let me go ahead and insert some here. All right, so we got our first rectangle in there, and we're just gonna copy it and paste right here. It's a really easy way to get things done in Power Apps, just copy and paste. And we're just gonna make it the width of the screen. There's two ways to do this. I could just expand it like that, another way to do it. And we're not gonna be changing anything more in these, so I can just change the width of it to parent.width. And its parent is the screen itself. So this will make it the width of the screen. So it's actually off the screen somewhat. So let me just make it line up here. So see, it's perfect width. The X value is just a little bit off. And let's see what I want this height of these to be. I think I want it to be, this is the current application, or the final state of it rather. So we got the height 62, okay. So we'll make the height of both of these 62. 62, and we'll see change there, and just move it down, and then we'll just change it to 62 here as well. All right, and then we'll just change the colors of it as well. So I want this one to be blue, so let's see if this is the right one. Go to my RGBA values and fill the color up. Okay, this is actually green, so I want the other one. I'm just copying this off screen. You can't see my OneNote, but I got it already down here. All right, so that looks good. And then we want our old one. Same thing, go here and fill and change the color. So now it looks nice and pretty. Okay, so we've got our proper looking image. Unfortunately, it didn't expand to the whole screen. And when I try to do parent.width and parent.height, it just makes it look all wonky. So just a little, creativity here. Just adding those rectangles in. Now we got the rectangles, the background, the bird, which is great, and the game over visual. So now next we're going to be dropping the bird like you see in the game here. So I'll just show you the game again. So let me click play here. The final product, you'll see the bird drop down. Just ignore the blocks for now, but next step, we're making that bird drop. All right, so the first step in this is assigning global variables. So, global variables, the global part means when we assign them, they work throughout the entire application. And if we had multiple screens, they would work throughout all the screens. That's what it means by global variable. And once we set them, you can view your global variables over here in the view part, and you can click on variables. We don't have any yet, but we're going to assign them now. So first things first, let's do the X. So this is the X position of our bird, meaning it is 200. So that means it is 200 pixels from the right. So if I move it over here to the right, it'll go up. See that? It's going up, and if we go back, it'll go back. So it's very dynamic, which is awesome. And same thing for the Y. So if we go down, the Y value will go up. If we go up, the Y value will go down. So it's dynamic. So just think of the screen like a graph, and the 0, 0 point is right here, the top left. That's where the 0, 0 point is. we want the bird to be at the same position at the start of every game. And we want to assign those global variables in the on start portion of the app, meaning when the app starts, our global variables are set. So we have to set our global variables and then we change them throughout the app, which is like where the magic happens, right? That's the changing of the variables. It'll make the bird move, it'll make the blocks move, it'll make buttons visible and invisible. It's all very cool. So I'm going to on start here. And I actually have already written all this code, and I'm just going to copy and paste it here off screen. And so on start here, I'll just click Control V actually. So these are our variables. These are all the global variables that we're going to work on, but we just need to focus on the first two. So VarBird X and VarBird Y. So I set them to 172, meaning the X position of the bird, and 312 for the Y position. So we go to our Y position there, and you see it's dynamic. It tells you which global variables there are, and anything with var in it. So VarBird Y, okay, and then we go to VarBird X in the X coordinate. Take a break and I'm going to refresh. So if I save here, I just refresh. So as you can see, we're done refreshing. I paused it and just waited. It took a minute. But you can see here the X and Y values. They're still VarBird X and VarBird Y. But you can see over here, they're kind of grayed out because they knows it's a variable and it's code being written, right? It says here, see what it says. Horizontal position of the visual. This property has a formula, select edit in the formula bar. So, but that's what we set our variables to, right? VarBird X was 172, and VarBird Y was 312. So it worked perfectly. So now we have our bird set, and this is where our bird's going to be whenever we start the app. So now we're going to have the bird drop in value. So we assign the values for X and Y for the bird to global variables. And so now we're going to go ahead and add our timer here. So we just insert a timer. All right. It's actually under input. All right. So a couple things we're going to do here. We don't need to see the timer at all. So we could just look at the visibility property of the timer. And we'll just set it to false. We can either do one thing, we could set it here and it changes to false, or we could have just typed it in. So I just clicked the little radio button. So that means it's invisible now. It'll always be on the screen and it'll impact our bird and things like that, but we don't need to see it. The user doesn't need to see it at all. But we're going to go ahead and start impacting our bird, right, with the timer. So a little bit about the timer. It's like a really cool tool. It's really important if you're going to be making anything that moves around in your Canvas app, especially if you're building a game in it. So we're going to be using all of our movement in the app for when the timer ends. So right now it's false. So we'll go ahead and insert our code for that. So 1 second, I'll pull it up. All right, so I've got our code here and on timer end. I'm gonna Control V again. So this is when the timer ends. It's gonna set our variable. It's going to add 5 And it's also going to set our blocks, but we're going to worry about the blocks later. For now, just worry about this first portion, right? So when the timer ends, it's going to add 5 pixels to this bird. So setting the variable in 5. So well, let's look at the duration here real quick of the timer. That's important. So duration right now is 60,000. So this is in milliseconds. For the app, I chose 100 milliseconds, just 1/10 of a second. It's like really fast, and it helps. It helps with the make the bird move kind of fast, right? So you could, if you wanted to make 1,000, the bird would go slower, and then if you want to make it 10, the bird would go really fast. So whenever the timer ends, right? So obviously, the longer the timer is, the slower the bird will be, and the blocks as well. The blocks will be moving off the timer as well. So whenever the timer ends, the variables are going to be impacted. So now we have to figure out a way to start the timer, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to insert a button here. So we got our button here, and we're going to type in start. All right, so we got start here. And I'm going to go ahead and just copy my old start button, and I'll explain the code. So on select, meaning when we press the button, it's going to set these variables. So var start game, var start visibility, and jump visibility as well. So var start game, that's the first variable we're going to worry about. So we're going to worry about this one here. And then we're going to go ahead and assign it to our timer here. So we go to the start property of the timer, and we assign it here. So what happens here? So we got, when does the timer start? It starts whenever this variable is impacted, the var start game. And a var start game is set to true, meaning if the timer is true for the start property, that means it's starting, right? And you might not have seen it earlier, but on start, I assigned some global variable values, one of them being var start game. So when the game starts, or when the app starts rather, the game doesn't start yet. It's set to false. But when we click this button, and I'm going to change the color here because it's bothering me. I want the text to be a different color. All right, so it turns out the color of the start button, you just had to save the app and then refresh it. I ran into that problem before and I completely forgot. But so yeah, I just saved and refreshed and it changed the color, so now it looks pretty good. So we got our on select, it'll change the value of the variable. So let's go ahead and test it here and see what happens. Actually, one thing I forgot to do is I have to go to the timer and make sure it resets. So every time. So I'll go ahead and repeat here and set to true. So our timer doesn't stop, right? It just keeps going and going. All right, I might have to reset the app. Okay, so I saved and I refreshed the app. So we'll test again real quick. Okay, great. So look at our bird, it's dropping. Awesome. So now I have to, reset the game, like resetting the variables for like testing purposes, and like, if the user, they want to reset the game, we have to give them that opportunity, right? So it's actually really simple resetting the game. So it's just resetting the global variables, right? So I'm going to go ahead and make another button here. I'll just copy this one actually. And the only difference is for this one, we're going to name it reset. Reset game. All right, so all we have to do here is just go for when on the timer ends. We already set all of our global variables, right? I'm sorry, not on timer ends, when the app starts rather. We have all of our global variables here. We just need to copy them and just paste them. So if we, something cool about Power Automate is when you click the Alt button and you click on it, it'll perform that like function. So if I click reset here, it'll reset. So you can't see, but I'm clicking the Alt button while I'm pressing on the mouse. So we can go ahead and play here, and then we can go ahead and start. You see, and it's dropping, which is awesome. But here, it's even cooler. We reset, it'll reset, and then we can start again. So our reset button and our start button are working, which is awesome. All right, so now the next step in our app, we're going to be creating another button. It's going to be our jump button. So we'll go ahead and just copy and paste here. It's really easy. And we're just going to rename the text to jump. And on select, we're obviously gonna change that. So on select, we're going to, I'm just gonna copy the code from the other screen. We're gonna set our variable, our y variable, which is the variable of the y value in the bird. So every time we click jump, it's going to subtract the value of the y variable, the bird, by 40 pixels. And remember, the further you get away from the top, the more pixels it is. So this is 0, 0, and this is like whatever the value is in pixels. I think like 600 or something at the bottom here. So every time we subtract by 40, it's actually going to go up here. So I think it's ready to go now. So we'll go ahead and test it. So we'll click play here. All right, so we'll click start here, or reset game, start, and then jump. All right, and our bird is jumping. And if we jump, further past the screen, the bird will still drop. It's going up, and it comes back down. So that's great progress that we've made. So I'll go ahead and exit here, exit the play part. I don't know if I explained that earlier, but when we click play here, that is when we get to actually test our app. So you can either click play, or for like smaller things, like you can click reset, and right here from like the editing portion of the app, if you click Alt and reset, it plays the button as well. But yeah, the play button, that's very useful for testing purposes. So that is what the user sees when they're playing the app, hence the name, play. So, all right, so we've made really excellent progress so far. I'm going to go ahead and set the visibility of this to false. We've actually already set this visibility, or this variable rather, but we just need to assign it to the visibility property. So I think the name of this is like game over visibility, something like that. Yeah, var game over visibility. So perfect. I already set it in the on start portion, somewhere around here. So var game over visibility to false. So since the app is on, it's set to false. But once our bird hits the blocks and it loses, you lose the game. If that happens, the game over visibility will pop up. But we'll get to that later. For now, let's create the blocks. Yeah. So we're just gonna do 3 of them. So there's only gonna be 3 points this game. I did like 25 or something like that, and when I first created the game, but we'll just do 3 now. And if you want to do more, you can obviously just copy and paste. But we'll go ahead and create our rectangles. So let me go ahead and add them here. So icons, and let's go create some more rectangles. All right, So we're gonna have like 3 rectangles here, or rather 6, because we have a top one and a bottom one, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and change the color to the green. All right. And do this here. And I'll just go ahead and copy and paste all these. So I changed the X value too. I paused it real quick and change the X value as well. But I'll go ahead and paste here, and I'll just drag it down here. And I want the X value to all be the same. That's gonna be really important for measuring if the bird hits the blocks and things like that. The Y value's not as important, but I'll go ahead and drag these down. I'll make the height like, I want the first point to be easy for the user, right? So I'll make it like 150. So I'm just changing the height over here. And it went up, but I want the Y value to be here and the X values to all be the same. So I check here, the X values are the same, which is great. And we can just do copy and paste multiple times. Paste, paste. Oops. And here. Okay, so now we have all of our rectangles in. We're going to go ahead and assign the variables for these. All right, so let's go ahead and start assigning our X values to our rectangles. We actually already set them earlier on start, so we'll go ahead and call this X blocks 1. And we'll do the same here. Just copy and paste. And I'm going to copy here and paste here, but obviously we don't want all the X values to be the same. So I chose like plus 275, so it's going to be 275 pixels away. So at first it's going to be, whoops, I forgot to click copy at the wrong time. So X blocks 1 plus 275. So that looks great. And then we're going to do the same thing down here for the next rectangle. Here's where, if you want to continue on after 3, it'll help you. So you want this second one to be X blocks 1 plus 275, but this third one, since it's 2 away, you could start multiplying, right? So I'm going to do for X block 1 plus 275 asterisk, which is the multiplication function in Power Apps, times 2. So it's 275 times 2. That's like 550, right? And you can see it already moved it. So it moved it appropriately. So these are all like evenly out. The goal is to have all the blocks, the top and bottom one are lined up, but the next one over is even with the next one over. So all 275 pixels apart here. So I'll copy and paste here into our X value. All right. So now that we've got all of our blocks in, that's great. So now we're going to start doing getting the blocks moving, right? So now that I think it will actually work right now, we can test it out. Okay, so let's go ahead and click the play button here, and then let's click start. Yeah, because we already pasted the code in, so it's already moving the timer and the X blocks. So that's why it is, the bird's still moving down and these are moving over. So I'll go ahead and reset the game, and I'll just dig into this code to explain what's going on here. So let's go to on the timer and when it ends. So it's moving our X values here since I already pasted this earlier. So every time the timer ends, we're setting the X block value to minus 10 pixels. So these all have, even though we're adding 275 and 510 or 550 to these blocks over here, it's still adding to the X values. So every time, they all move in sync, which is really cool. So because they all have the X block value here, every single one of them, right? So that is why they're moving now currently. And when the timer ends, the bird is moving and the blocks are moving. So we're making really great progress here. As I mentioned earlier, though, when you might have noticed that when I click play here or hit start, the blocks are actually ahead of the start value, and that's kind of tricky for the jump part. So we want the jump and all the buttons here to actually be ahead of them. So I'll go ahead and click this, click reset here. And then I'm going to bring our buttons forward. So we'll go ahead and bring these to the front here. All right, so you see, actually, you saw it right there. So the start button went ahead of it now. So that was something important that we get sorted out so it doesn't affect the app. All right, so now we can start with the score. So whenever the bird, he jumps successfully through these barriers, right? We want to assign him a point. So it's only going to go up to 3 points, but I already assigned a variable earlier. So on start, we'll go back. I set the global score to 0. So I'll go ahead and show that. And I can just do in a text field here. So just a text field here. And I want it to be a little bit bigger, so I'll expand it here and make the font really big. I'll be like, let's do like 55 or something. And, ooh, that's pretty big. And I'll expand it. And I'll make it the color different, change it to white. Okay, and I'll put it down here. Cool. And then this is the text, right? What's cool about this is, you have the quotes here, so you could just manipulate it. It could be whatever you want, and expand it here. Or, if you get away, if you delete everything here, you could just make it whatever the variable is. So we already have our variable set here. So global score, it's 0, which is really cool. So we're going to go ahead and put our text alignment a little bit better here. I actually don't like the way it's being padded right now. All right, that looks better. This is our score here, and it's pretty, self-evident. So to the user. So I'm not going to put like a header or anything like that. Score 0 right now. And okay, so we'll go ahead and start, manipulating the timer now to make sure that when we start the game and our bird jumps through it, it starts updating to reflect points. Will be 1, 2, and 3 here when it's all said and done. So we have to think about the objective here, right? So when I first did this, I kind of messed it up when I was first doing this project a couple weeks ago. And the goal is when the bird, goes over the blocks here, it gets 1 point. So that sounds easy, but you got to think about it. So the bird actually doesn't really move, but the blocks do. And when is the point assigned? So we got to think the X value of the bird is actually like the top left. It's just like the graph that I talked about earlier. It's just like the screen, right? The screen's 0, 0 value is right here at the top. Same thing for the blocks, 0, 0 here, and 0, 0 here. So we have to think, we don't want it when the 0, 0 or the left side of the bird crosses over. We want it for when the right side of the bird crosses over and reaches a certain point in the middle here, it gets 1 point. When I first did it, I was like, all right, whenever the bird value is, the y value is below here and above here and in between here, it'll assign a point. And then I got like 6 points every time I went through, and I was like, oh, that's not right. So you have to give it a very small window of pixels. So you only are getting 1 point every time you go through. So I already have that code written. I'm going to copy and paste it for when on the timer ends, then I'm going to walk through it. So I'll exit out here, and then I'm going to add it to the on the timer ends. And then we'll go ahead and, okay, so this is good though. I forgot to do this. I forgot to rename our blocks. So I'll go ahead and do that. So I'll just do that really quickly. All right, so I went and renamed all of our blocks to the appropriate, just like, so it'd be easier. I copy and pasted the code from the original app and I pasted it here and I renamed the rectangles so the code would work. But what are we looking at here? So again, we talked about the x value, meaning the left side. So I'm saying you get 1 point if the bottom value here of the x is less than or equal to the x value of the bird and greater than the bottom block x value is greater than the bird minus 15 pixels, meaning that window I talked about, it's 15 pixels wide. So that will make sure the bird just gets 1 point every time it goes through. So it's basically saying whenever the right side of the bird crosses in here, and then when it exits out here, minus 15 pixels. So you get like 15 pixels somewhere in here, right? And the top value, and the bird, y value of the bird is greater than, meaning the top of the bird is greater than this top block and less than the bottom block here, setting the global score at +1. So we just did it for the first block here. This is just top block 0, bottom block 0. So it's just this one here and this one right here. So if we go ahead and play the app. All right, so let's go ahead and test it out here. And then when we pass here, it should update to 1 point, and it does. Awesome. So it updated our global score variable to add 1, meaning it worked successfully. So whenever it passed through a window right here, the bird successfully did. It got 1 point. But if we could test it to make sure, right? So we reset start and jump way up here just to check. And if it gets 1 point, it does not get 1 point. So that means it's working. For the top one, we'll just make sure it's working it's actually moving so fast that it will always be over the first one. So we know it's working, so that's good news. All right, so what's cool about this though is we'll just go ahead and comment out just so we know, scoring of points. And then we'll do our other 3 points, or the 2 points rather, to have 3 points total. And it's really simple. We're just gonna copy and paste here. And we just have to change the values, right? So it's easy when you have good naming conventions here. So I just have to change the values here. Voila, magic. Okay, so I paused and I went ahead and just updated it here. So we got bottom block 1, 0. Actually pasted it twice. 0, 1, and 2. So that's perfect. So let's go ahead and test it out. All right, let's test this out. 1, 2, and let's see, 3. Awesome. So it's working successfully, and we'll just go ahead and make sure we get 1 point here, and then go way above here. So yep, just still 1 point. So it's working just fine. Awesome. All right, we're making some really awesome progress right here. So we got all of our points assigned, our birds moving down, our jump buttons working, our blocks are moving, it's all going great. So one of the major portions left, the only major portions left, is barrier collision, right? So when the bird hits these barriers, we want the game over symbol to pop up. So it's gonna be, you gotta think about this, right? It's the same thing, like the same dilemma kind of. We only want if the right side of the bird hits anywhere within here to in here, and same for all the other blocks. And the left side of the bird, if it hits anywhere in here. So I already have the code already. So we're gonna go ahead and copy and paste it on the timer ends. All right, so we've got all 6 barrier collision detection things, lines of code written. The bottom ones are all the same, and the top ones are all the same. Obviously, the only difference are, this is for 0, 1, 2, same thing, 0, 1, 2. So I'll go ahead and walk through the bottom one, and then I'll walk through the top one, just so we can get, so it can make some sense. So I'll pull it down again. So this is for the bottom, right? The first bottom one, meaning if the bird ever hits this one, it actually never will. Because we saw it earlier. If I increase the height of the block, it could, but the blocks move so fast that the bird won't. But I'll still talk to it, so it makes sense. So if the bird ever hits this block or any of the other blocks, the game over visibility will turn to true. So that's what these are all saying. If you look at all of these, all the barrier collision ones, it all ends with setting the variable game over visibility to true, meaning the game is over. So let's start with the first one, block 0. Again, block 0, bottom block 0 is this one right here, this green block. So, okay, so what it's saying is it's got to satisfy 3 requirements. The first one being if the bird height, meaning if the y value of the bird minus the bird height, meaning the bottom part of this bird is ever below here, it would be a barrier collision. And the other 2 parts obviously are if the right side of the bird here ever goes into here while it's below, while it's also the left side of the bird is also within here. So the whole point is, the 1 point of the bird, if it ever enters anywhere in here, it's game over. So I'll talk to that more. So we understood the first part, right? Is the bottom of the bird ever hits the bottom, or the top rather, of the block or anywhere below that, and the x value of the bird plus the bird's width, because remember, the x value of the bird is actually on the left-hand side. So if we add the bird's width here, if it's ever greater than or equal to the bottom block x, meaning right here, and less than or equal to the x value of the bird subtracted by the bottom block of the width. So we subtracted the bottom block of the width here at the bottom because it's anywhere from here to here. So we have to subtract it since we want to go from here to here. If it were greater than or equal to the bottom block x to the greater than or equal to, less than or equal to the block value, then it wouldn't make sense, right? So the whole point is it's game over whenever the bird is below here and in between here. And then let's go to the top values. It's the same concept, right? The only difference is the y values, right? So I'll go just talk about the y portion. So if the bird value here for top block 0 is less than or equal to the top block value plus the top block height. So why is the top block height? Because we're saying if it's the bird value is, if we're saying it's less than or equal to the top block value, the y value, then it would be up here at the top. We have to add the height so it goes down here, right? So that's why we add the height there, and it's the same concept within left or right. So let's go ahead and test it out. All right, so it's game over. So it works. Excellent. So I'll go ahead and reset actually. Same thing, I'll start it. Jump here, just get 1 point. And then game over here. All right, so it's all working. So all the major parts of the app are done. Awesome. Some things I actually forgot to bring up earlier. I don't want the jump thing to always be there, actually. So I'm going to change the visibility. I actually already set this variable. So I'm just going to check this, or change this to this. And I'm going to click reset. And I'll go ahead and change the visibility here. Actually, I think I need to update the global variable. Okay, I updated the app and I had to save it and refresh it. Sometimes you have to do that in Power Apps. So the jump, we don't want the jump option to be there. It could make the bird go up even though we're not starting the game. So we'll click start here, and there goes the jump button, and the start button actually disappeared because I assigned that variable to the visibility part. And here we go, and it's over, and we can reset the game. Jump button is invisible now, and the start button is there. So again, the way I did that was just go into the visible portion of the start and assign it the variable, which is already set there, and I did the same thing for the jump button. Okay. One final thing that we'll do is really cool. I just went ahead and added a media file and audio, and I'm going to go ahead and add the wing noise in here. So I'm going to go ahead and click it, wing. So when it plays, it's going to make the cool noise that we had earlier in the video. All right, so earlier we actually already set our variable for wing noise. So the wing noise is false right now. That's our variable right here. And we just have to assign it to our audio here. Just name it wing noise. But what we need to do is change the media property to auto start and do the variable, which is wing noise. And we want this to be invisible. And whenever we click the jump button, it's going to make that noise. So it's going to be really cool. To true. All right, so let's go ahead and test that out. I left out one part, didn't I? Okay, so it only made the noise once, so there's a little bit of troubleshooting here. So I'm going to reset the game and look at on the timer here, or on the media, and see what we forgot to do. Okay, I looked at the app and I remember what it was now. So I had to set the wing noise to true and then to false after. So we'll go ahead and show. All right, look at that. It makes the wing noises every time I click jump, and everything's working. Everything's working great. All right. And that is it for the app. I think we're all done here. This is awesome. So So that does conclude all the development work we're going to do today. There's so much more you could do with this if you wanted to. Just some things I thought of. Um, Man, you could make it so the blocks are actually images that look like the actual game if you ever played Flappy Bird when it was still around. You could have a winning graphic when you reach 3 points in our case, or like if you wanted 50 points, you can continue on, like something that pops up and shows like you won the game. You could do a lot of things. Yeah, ideas are endless. If you crash into the barriers, you can do another noise for when your bird loses. Lots of stuff you can do. I had a blast working on this project. It's a personal project of mine. I've been working on it for a couple weeks now. Um, if anyone has any questions about the app, feel free to comment below, and I'll try to get back to them as soon as I can. I will be, helping out those if you have any questions. I'll also be adding a bunch of links, like I said earlier, that might be helpful. I know I'm going to add some on global variables and stuff like that. Anything that like might help you guys that I didn't explain well enough. Thank you guys so much for watching. It does mean a lot. So have a great day, everyone.